The air in briefing room Gamma was a carefully calibrated cocktail of nitrogen, oxygen, and trace elements designed to be breathable, if not entirely comfortable, for the half-dozen species present. It smelled faintly of ozone and sterilized metal, a scent that had become synonymous with the Interspecies Operations Academy. Cadet Eva Rostova, designation human, sat with her back straight, a datapad inert on the table before her. She wasn't taking notes. She was watching. Across the polished alloy table, Kalen Var, designation Cathar, was holding court. He stood even when seated, his massive, chitin-plated frame towering over the others. Two of his four powerful arms were crossed over a chest broad as a doorway, the other two gesturing emphatically as he spoke. His mandibles clicked with each stressed syllable, a percussive accompaniment to his booming voice. "The scenario is irrelevant," he declared, his gaze sweeping over the team. "A hostile environment, indigenous threats, a recovery objective. These are constants. The only variable that matters is the strength of the team, and I assure you, with a Cathar warrior leading, our strength is absolute." His eyes, multifaceted and black, lingered for a moment on Eva. Humans were a recent addition to the galactic community and an even more recent one to the Academy. They were soft, small, and deplorably fragile. Kalen's assessment of her was a mixture of pity and contempt. She was a liability, a piece of baggage to be carried. Next to him, his clutchmate Tarek, a Cathar elder whose chitin was a dull, scarred gray instead of Kalen's vibrant, metallic bronze, gave a slow, deliberate nod. Tarek was not as large or as strong as Kalen, but he carried the weight of experience. In Cathar society, that was more than enough. Borsk, a Grolic whose amphibious skin glistened with a light sheen of moisture under the room's dry lights, let out a low, gurgling sigh. "Strength is one asset, Kalen. The simulation parameters mention neurotoxins in the flora and fauna. Can you punch a poison molecule?" "A Grolic talks of poison," Kalen scoffed. "Predictable. You will handle the toxins, I will handle the threats. Our roles are clear. Loyalty and obedience to the chain of command are all that is required for success. A concept my people understand perfectly." He thumped his chest, the sound a dull, resonant thud. "It is the source of our power. Unbroken tradition, unshakable resolve." Eva's gaze drifted to the fourth member of their team, Lyra, a crystalline Xylan who communicated through harmonic chimes rather than speech. A soft, questioning melody shimmered in the air, which Eva interpreted as a query about Eva's own role. Eva offered a small, noncommittal smile. She had no intention of listing her qualifications. Boasting was a broadcast of perceived strengths, which was tactically equivalent to handing an enemy a map of your fortress. It was far more useful to let them underestimate you. Let them see a soft, quiet human and draw their own conclusions. Their instructor, Zhao, entered the room. A Lorian, his tall, slender body seemed to flow rather than walk. His face was a smooth, featureless ovoid that betrayed no emotion, but his voice, a calm, resonant tenor, commanded immediate silence. "Team 7. Your drill commences in 30 minutes. You are aware of the objective. Retrieve the data core from the downed scout ship, designation Broken Arrow, and proceed to the extraction point 12 kilometers to the north. The simulation environment is Cestus 3. Expect dense jungle, significant swampland, and aggressive, territorial fauna. Your simulated lives are your own to preserve. Do not disappoint me." Zhao's featureless face seemed to sweep across them all, but Eva felt his attention linger on her for a fraction of a second longer. He knew her file. He knew she was a psychologist by training, specializing in xenopsychology, seconded to the military for this interspecies integration program. He knew she was an anomaly. 30 minutes later, the sterile scent of the briefing room was replaced by the thick, cloying smell of decay and alien chlorophyll. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, they were on the cool metal floor of the prep bay. The next, they were standing in ankle-deep, lukewarm water that smelled of sulfur and rot. The air was heavy, humid, and alive with the buzzing and chirping of a million unseen things. Towering, phosphorescent fungi cast an eerie green-blue glow on the landscape, their light barely piercing the dense canopy of fleshy, leaf-like structures hundreds of feet above. "Simulation fidelity is remarkable," Borsk gurgled. dipping a webbed hand into the murky water and tasting it. High sulfur content methane pockets. We must be cautious of ground instability. Caution is the shield of the weak, Kalen announced, already moving forward. He drew a catheric blade, a wicked curve of serrated metal nearly as long as Eva's arm. The swiftest path to victory is a straight line. Follow me. Tarak, the elder Cathar, moved just behind him, a symbol of ratified authority. Kalen was the designated leader for this exercise, but he continuously glanced back at Tarak, his posture subtly shifting based on the elder's minute gestures. A slight dip of Tarak's head was approval. A stillness was a prompt for Kalen to reevaluate, though always through the lens of direct, aggressive action. Eva cataloged this immediately. It wasn't just respect for an elder. It was a deeply ingrained, almost biological feedback loop. The warrior acts, the elder sanctions. For the first hour, Kalen's approach seemed to work. A thicket of thorny, whip-like vines blocked their path. Borsk advised looking for a way around, warning of potential paralytic agents on the thorns. Kalen simply powered through, his four arms a whirlwind of blade and brute force, carving a tunnel through the vegetation in minutes. He stood on the other side, breathing heavily but triumphant, his carapace flecked with shredded plant matter. "See," he bellowed back at them. "Strength provides its own path." Lyra emitted a series of dissonant chimes, which Eva understood meant query. Expenditure of energy versus potential gain. The alternate path may have been more efficient. Eva remained silent. She watched Kalen. His breathing was heavy, his movements already a fraction slower. He had won the battle with the vines, but he had paid a price in stamina. A small price, but the kilometers were long and the jungle was vast. They found the crashed scout ship an hour later, its hull torn open like a metallic seed pod. The data core was where the manifest said it would be, pulsing with a soft, orange light. As Kalen reached for it, a screech echoed from the canopy above. Six-limbed creatures, somewhere between reptile and insect, dropped from the trees. They were fast, sleek, and armed with sickle-like claws that dripped with a viscous black fluid. Borsk hissed. "Their claws carry a necrotizing agent. Do not let them touch you." Kalen let out a roar of pure joy. "Finally, a worthy challenge. Form a perimeter. We will show them Cathar might." He met the first skreek head-on, his blade a blur. The creature was fast, but Kalen was faster, stronger. He cleaved it in two with a single, brutal strike. The others fell upon the team. Borsk was surprisingly agile, using the swampy ground to his advantage, his webbed feet finding purchase where the skreeks slipped. Lyra emitted a high-frequency pulse that seemed to disorient the creatures, causing them to hesitate for a fatal second. Eva, armed only with a standard-issue kinetic pulse pistol, did not engage directly. She backpedaled, putting distance between herself and the frenzied melee. Her mind wasn't on the fight, it was on the skreeks' behavior. They weren't attacking randomly. They were coordinated. They used flanking maneuvers, trying to draw Kalen's attention while another slipped past his guard. They were pack hunters. "Kalen, they're trying to isolate you," she yelled, her voice thin in the cacophony. "I need no help from the human," he roared back, parrying a strike that would have decapitated Borsk. He was magnificent, a whirlwind of destruction. He killed another skreek, then another. But he was being drawn further and further from the relative safety of the crashed ship. Tarak, the elder, stood his ground near the ship, his own blade out, fighting with the grim economy of age. He grunted a single word in their native tongue. It sounded like a command. Kalen, despite being in the throes of battle fury, immediately tried to disengage and fall back to the elder's position. It was a critical mistake. The momentary shift in focus, the slight turn, was all the opening the skreeks needed. One of them lunged, not at Kalen, but at his legs. Its claws raked across his lower leg joint. The simulation registered the hit instantly. A bright red icon flashed on Kalen's HUD, visible even to the others. Below-knee trauma. Neurotoxin detected. Locomotion impaired. Kalen roared in fury and pain, real or simulated, it hardly mattered. He crushed the skreek's head with a gauntleted fist, but the damage was done. He stumbled, his powerful stride now a hobbled limp. "Fall back! To the ship!" Borsk yelled, spitting a stream of acidic bile that made two skreeks recoil. They scrambled back into the relative cover of the hull. The remaining skreeks, having drawn blood, circled for a moment before melting back into the jungle. The fight had lasted less than a minute. Inside the wreck, the mood was grim. Kalen leaned against a bulkhead, his leg locked in a rigid automated medical brace from his suit. The red icon on his HUD pulsed ominously. The wound is simulated, but the suit's limiters are active, he ground out, his mandibles clicking in frustration. My speed is reduced by half. It is nothing. I will endure. It is not nothing, Eva said, her voice quiet but firm. She was examining the exterior of the wreck. They didn't just attack us, they tested us. They found the biggest, loudest threat, you, and focused on it. But they didn't try to kill you. They crippled you. That wasn't a random fight for territory, that was a strategic assessment. Our beasts, Kalen snapped. They act on instinct. Is just a word for strategy that has been refined by 1,000,000 years of evolution, Eva countered. Their instinct was to neutralize the primary threat in the most efficient way possible. And they succeeded, made a sharp clicking sound. The human speaks out of turn. The path forward is clear. We have the core. We move to the extraction point. The warrior's resolve will overcome this minor inconvenience. Kalen nodded, his jaw set. The elder is right. We move. Now. He tried to stand, to project the same indomitable strength as before, but the limp was undeniable. Every step was a declaration of his new vulnerability. The jungle, which had seemed a mere obstacle before, now felt like a living entity, watching and waiting. The chirps and buzzes were no longer background noise. They were whispers of impending doom. For 3,000 words of observation, Eva had watched Kalen. She had seen his strength, his bravado, his absolute reliance on a physical solution for every problem. She had seen his pride. But most importantly, she had seen the invisible tether that bound him to Tarak. It was more than respect. It was a fundamental component of his being. Kalen was not an individual leader. He was the kinetic expression of the Elder's will. The Cathar's strength was not in one warrior, but in the seamless link between the mind of the old and the body of the young. A beautiful, powerful, and utterly rigid system. And in its rigidity, Eva had found the hairline fracture she was looking for. The discovery of their nature was complete. Now she only had to wait for the right moment to apply pressure. That moment came 2 hours later. The extraction point was on the other side of a wide, fast-flowing river. The water was a murky brown, and Borsk, after a quick analysis, confirmed it was teeming with microbial life that would overwhelm their suit filters in minutes. Worse, the riverbed was a tangled mess of submerged, rock-hard roots. We cannot cross here, Borsk stated flatly. The current is too strong and Kalen's leg will not hold against it. We must find a crossing further upstream. The map indicates a natural rock bridge 3 kilometers to the east. 3 kilometers, Kalen snarled. We do not have time. The extraction window is in 90 minutes. We cross here. We will tether ourselves together. My strength will be enough for all of us. Is illogical, Lyra chimed, her tones sharp with alarm. Probability of success, less than 17%. Probability of team-wide asset loss, greater than 60%. Your numbers are the calculations of a coward, Kalen retorted. He turned to the silent elder. Tarak, the old Cathar, stared at the raging water for a long moment, his multifaceted eyes unreadable. He then looked at Kalen's leg, and then at the northern bank, so close and yet so far. Finally, he gave a slow, resolute nod. The warrior's spirit is not measured in probabilities. It is tested in the face of impossible odds. We cross here. It is the Cathar way. That was it, the final seal of approval. Kalen's face was set in a mask of grim determination. He began unspooling a high-tensile cable from his belt. Borsk looked horrified. Lyra's chimes were a frantic cascade of panicked logic. This was suicide. A glorious, honorable, and completely stupid suicide. Eva had been silent throughout the exchange. She had watched the entire decision-making process, a perfect, tragic ballet of cultural imperatives. Kalen proposed the heroic, impossible path. The team members with specialized knowledge protested with logic and data. Kalen sought validation not from the data, but from the embodiment of his tradition. The tradition, valuing honor over survival, sanctioned the impossible. The loop was closed. The decision was made. Eva took a step forward. Kalen, wait. He turned to her, his face a mask of contempt. Have you a final prayer, human? Speak it now, for we are wasting time. "Have an observation," she said, her voice even almost conversational. She met his gaze without flinching. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, a frantic, primal drumbeat. This was the point of no return. The core of the exercise wasn't retrieving a data core. It was this. It was always this. She took a breath. "Your species places too much value on tradition." Kalen's mandibles flared. "Our tradition is our strength. It is what makes us unconquerable." Eva held his gaze. She did not raise her voice. She delivered the final, targeted blow with the precision of a surgeon. "You'll obey an elder even if they're wrong." Silence. The word hung in the humid air, heavier than the unspoken threat of the jungle. It was not an insult. It was not a challenge. It was a clinical diagnosis, and it struck Kalen with more force than any physical weapon could. His entire body went rigid. His four arms, which had been so full of purpose a moment before, fell slack. He stared at her, his multifaceted eyes wide with a confusion so profound it was terrifying. The entire framework of his reality had been pried open and exposed to the light. The unbreakable chain of command, the sacred bond between warrior and elder, had been reframed in a single, devastating sentence. Obedience to error. He slowly, mechanically, turned his head to look at Tarak. For the first time, he wasn't looking at the elder for guidance or sanction. He was looking at him as an individual, an old, tired Cathar who had just sentenced them all to a glorious, pointless death. He saw the scarred chitin, the weary stance, the unshakable certainty that was born not of wisdom, but of sheer, unthinking repetition. Tarak, in turn, stared back at Kalen, and then his gaze shifted to Eva. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of pure, venomous hatred. He had been dishonored. No, it was worse than that. He had been invalidated. The team, which had been a tense but cohesive unit moments before, simply disintegrated. Kalen stood frozen, the cable slipping from his numb fingers. Tarak took a menacing step toward Eva, his blade raised. Borsk, seeing the internal command structure shatter, backed away, his own survival instincts taking over. Lyra emitted a long, mournful chime, the sound of a system crashing. Before Tarak could take another step, a klaxon blared through the jungle, sharp and artificial. The eerie green glow of the fungi vanished, replaced by the flat, white light of the simulation dome. The sounds of the jungle cut out, leaving a ringing silence. The far side of the river flickered and resolved into a gray, padded wall 50 meters away. Exercise terminated. Instructor Zhao's voice boomed from unseen speakers, devoid of any inflection. A section of the wall slid open, and Zhao walked toward them, his long strides eating up the distance. He surveyed the scene. The fractured team, the data core lying forgotten on the ground, Tarak trembling with rage, and Kalen, who looked like a statue carved from shock and disbelief. Zhao's featureless face turned to Eva. He stopped directly in front of her. The other cadets held their breath. Public deconstruction of a team member, especially one from a proud warrior race, was an unprecedented failure. Someone would pay the price. Zhao was silent for a long moment. Then his calm, resonant voice cut through the tension. "Did you know?" Eva met his gaze. Her own voice was steady, though she could feel the adrenaline beginning to recede, leaving a tremor in its wake. "Because your instinct is obedience," she said, her eyes flickering for a moment to the shell-shocked Kalen. "Mine is analysis." The debriefing room was colder and more silent than before. The five of them sat around the alloy table, the retrieved data core sitting in the center like an accusation. Instructor Zhao stood before them, his posture relaxed, but his presence filled the room. "Let us analyze the failure," Zhao began, his voice neutral. Team 7 retrieved the objective in record time. They successfully defended it from an indigenous attack, albeit with one injury. They reached the final obstacle with ample time for extraction. And then, at the precipice of success, the team suffered a complete systemic collapse. Not from an external threat, but from an internal one. He looked at Kalen. "Cadet Var, explain your decision-making process at the river." Kalen's mandibles were pressed tight. He could not look at Tarak, who sat stiffly beside him, radiating a cold fury. The mission required speed. The direct path was the fastest. It was the honorable path. "It the correct path?" Zhao pressed. Kalen hesitated. The question was a trap. Before, the answer would have been an unequivocal yes. Now the certainty was gone, replaced by a chasm of doubt. It was the path sanctioned by my elder. That sanction makes it correct. Kalen was silent. Cadet Borsk, Zhao said, turning to the Grolik. Your assessment. Borsk shifted his bulk. Kalen's plan was a failure in waiting. My analysis of the river was accurate. Lyra's probability calculations were accurate. We presented logical data. The data was ignored in favor of tradition. Lyra added a series of clear, concise chimes. The term is cultural override, a pre-programmed directive that supersedes real-time data analysis. Highly inefficient, Zhao's featureless face turned back to Eva. Cadet Rostova, you did not present data, you did not argue logistics. You made a personal statement that targeted the very core of the Cathar command structure. It was an act of psychological warfare against your own teammate. Explain your reasoning. All eyes were on her. Kalen's were filled with a burning, confused resentment. Tarak's were full of hate. It wasn't an attack, Eva said calmly. It was a countermeasure. The team was locked in a fatal feedback loop. Logic was presented and discarded. Data was presented and ignored. The command system was driving us toward certain failure. Any further argument based on logic would have been useless. The only way to break the loop was to target the system that was creating it. She continued, her voice gaining a quiet intensity. I have studied Cathar social structures. Your species evolved on a world with immense, catastrophic environmental pressures and hyperaggressive megafauna. Individualism was a death sentence. The only way to survive was absolute cohesion. The young and strong fought, and the old and experienced directed, having survived long enough to recognize patterns. That bond, warrior and elder, became the cornerstone of your entire civilization. It is an instinct carved into your genetics. Obedience isn't a choice, it's a reflex. She looked at Kalen directly. I saw it in how you deferred to Tarak even when you were the designated leader. Every decision was filtered through him. His approval was your imperative. The only way to make you stop and think for yourself was to force you to see that system for what it was, a system, one that, like any system, can be flawed. Dismantled his honor, Tarak rasped, his voice a dry rustle. You used your soft words to poison his spirit. Used an observation to prevent our simulated deaths, Eva corrected him gently. Honor is a poor substitute for survival, and tradition is a terrible leader when the landscape changes. Zhao let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. Many species in the galaxy believe humans to be weak. They look at your soft flesh, your limited senses, your lack of natural weapons, and they classify you as prey. They are catastrophically wrong. He began to pace slowly. They fail to understand that Earth's evolutionary crucible was unique. You were not the strongest, not the fastest. You were surrounded by predators that could kill you in an instant, so you did not evolve to fight them. You evolved to outthink them. You became the ultimate persistence hunters. He stopped and faced them. Other species hunt for food. Humans hunt for patterns, they hunt for leverage, they hunt for weakness. Their predatory nature is not in their claws or their fangs. It is cognitive, it is psychological. They are the only species we have encountered that weaponized analysis. He looked at Kalen. Cadet Rostova did not defeat you with strength. She did not outmaneuver you. She identified the core operating principle of your psyche, and with 10 words, brought your entire worldview to a halt. In a real conflict, this would be a devastating tactical advantage. The room was heavy with the weight of this new understanding. Borsk looked at Eva with a new, wary respect. Lyra's chimes were slow, contemplative. Kalen was pale beneath his chiton, the implications washing over him. The humans were not prey. They were something else entirely. Something far more dangerous. They didn't need to break your body if they could break your mind. This drill is a lesson for all of you, Zhao concluded. For the Cathar, it is a lesson that tradition, unquestioned, is a vulnerability. For the rest of you, it is a lesson about your new allies. Understand that a human's greatest weapon is their observation. When they are quiet, they are not idle. They are hunting. He dismissed them. Tarak rose and left without a word, a rigid pillar of fury. Borsk and Lyra departed with a respectful nod to Eva, their perspectives clearly and permanently altered. Only Kalen remained, seated across from her. He sat in silence for a full minute, staring at the polished table. Then he finally lifted his head, his multifaceted eyes locking onto hers. The rage was gone, replaced by something deeper, more unsettling. It was a raw, aching uncertainty. "Why?" he asked, his voice low and strained. "Why is your species like this? What kind of world creates a mind that functions as a weapon against other minds?" Eva leaned forward slightly. She saw no victory in his defeat, only a profound and tragic necessity. "We didn't evolve at the top of the food chain," she said softly. "For millions of years, we were the ones hiding in caves, listening to the things with claws and teeth hunting outside. We couldn't win with our bodies, so we had to learn to win with our minds. We learned to lie to predators, to trick them, to set traps. We learned to understand their instincts better than they did themselves." She paused, her expression somber. "And then, when the predators were gone, we turned that skill on each other. Our entire history is a story of psychological warfare. Nations, politics, relationships, it's all based on analyzing, predicting, and influencing the behavior of others. Analysis isn't just a skill for us, Kalen. It's the instinct that let us survive. It's what we are." Absorbed this, his mandibles working silently. The concept of a species honing its intellect not for discovery or creation, but as a primary tool of predation, was utterly alien to him. The Cathar built walls. Humans looked for the cracks. He finally stood up, his massive frame seeming less imposing, more vulnerable. "In my culture," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "trust is built on the certainty of another's actions. We are loyal because we are predictable. How can anyone trust a species whose greatest strength is its ability to manipulate the minds of others?" It was a question she had no answer for. It was the question the entire galaxy was subconsciously asking. He turned and left the room, his limp more pronounced than it had been in the simulation. Eva remained, alone in the silence. She had won the exercise. She had proven her point. But she had also revealed the fundamental, terrifying chasm that separated her species from the others. They saw strength in unity, honor in tradition, and clarity in obedience. She saw systems to be analyzed, variables to be manipulated, and vulnerabilities to be exploited. Later that evening, in the Academy's vast digital library, Kalen Var stood before a holographic display. He bypassed the sections on military strategy, weapons schematics, and galactic history. With a hesitant, deliberate motion, he keyed in his search query, "Human psychology, deception as a survival trait, cognitive warfare." As the files began to open, a look of grim, focused determination settled on his face. He was a warrior who had been defeated by a weapon he never knew existed. Now, he would learn its nature. He had to understand. Because one day, the safety of the simulation would be gone, and he needed to know if the human standing beside him was truly an ally or simply a predator who had not yet decided to strike. The future of their alliance, and perhaps the galaxy itself, would hinge on that answer.